I went to a school called, and I'm only saying it to impress you with the Welsh language, Ysgol Gyfun Maes Theron. That's it.
Do you want to say that again?
Things escalated and someone did the whole arm and she walked back in whilst his arm was on fire, and that didn't go down very well.
Do not try this at home.
Yeah, definitely do not try this.
Just don't try that at home. Hello and welcome to another episode of the TeacherPod. Today I'm interviewing a lovely lady called Miss Rees, who is one of the assistant principals at school and leads on the sixth form area as well. So I'm just going to let her introduce herself. First of all, who are you and what do you do?
My name is Susie Rees, Suzanne Rees if you go off my passport, and I am head of sixth form at Chobham Academy, and I have worked at Chobham Academy since September 2013 when it opened.
Tell us about your background. What kind of, where did you grow up? What was your background like?
If you don't get it from my accent, I'm from Wales, South Wales, a little town called Ystradgynlais, where I have lived my whole life until I went to university at 18, where I went to Manchester. So I grew up in Ystradgynlais, which is 16 miles north of Swansea. And it's a lovely little town, a bit boring, but lovely, full of mountains, but also relatively close to the beach. And I went to a school called, and I'm only saying it to impress you with the Welsh language, Ysgol Gyfun Maes Theron. That's it.
Do you want to say that again, just in case anybody needs to just get that repeated?
Ysgol, which is school in Welsh, Gyfun, I don't actually know what Gyfun is, Maes Theron.
Thanks. What kind of a student then were you at school, honestly?
In primary school, I was absolute, and I'm going to use the word just that you heard the other day, boffin. I was a complete geek. I loved school. I loved learning. And then I went to secondary school and didn't love learning so much and prioritised friends, boys, and was probably a bit of a pain in the bottom, to be honest with you, until I went to do A-levels, and GCSEs were a bit of a shock for me. I was predicted much higher than I got. I got lots of B's and C's, and it made me realise that I needed to do a bit more work. So I wised up a bit at A-levels. Not fully, but I wised up more than I had at GCSEs. Before I started teaching, I went back to my school to do some work experience. And I spent most of the first day there feeling like I needed to apologise to teachers for my secondary school behaviour. But they were quite nonchalant about it. They were like, oh, don't worry, you were fine. So I don't think I was probably as bad as I thought I was.
I'm going to push you a little bit. What was the naughtiest thing you did at school? Can you remember?
Do you remember the colour gas adverts where they did that and the finger lit up? Yeah. Well, we had this supply teacher called Slack Alice, because she was quite slack. And she'd left the room. I'm not really sure why she left the room. And I had a can of hairspray in my bag and another boy had a lighter. So we all started to hairspray our thumbs and do it. And things escalated and someone did the whole arm and she walked back in whilst his arm was on fire, and that didn't go down very well.
Do not try this at home.
Yeah, definitely do not try this.
Just don't try that at home.
Also, I think now, why as a teenager would you have a lighter in school? Like, I don't know.
I know.
I can understand hairspray, not a lighter.
So did you have any other jobs or careers? So tell us about a career you had or a job before going into education.
I spoke to you about this the other day too. So my father had this very wise and practical idea that every summer we would do some kind of job that would make us realize how fortunate we were to have an education. So in the summer before going to university, I worked in a factory called Ethnic Cuisine. Now, the name itself is bad enough.
Ethnic Cuisine.
No, terrible. Ethnic Cuisine does not exist anymore. If it did, I suspect they'd have to change their name. It packed, I can't even think about it now. It packed pre-made meals for Sainsbury's, Tesco's, etc. Indian cuisine, Chinese cuisine, hence the very politically incorrect name of the factory. And my one job when I was there, I only did it for 2-3 weeks, getting some money to go on holiday to Greece, which was kind of what motivated me. Otherwise, I don't think I'd have lasted a day. I had to stand at a weighing scale and put this 500 milliliter tub onto this weighing scale and press 0, then scoop in egg fried rice until it got to 500 grams. Then I used to have to put a lid on it and put it down the conveyor belt. So I did that for 12 hours a day. Plus, they had the same 10 songs on loop all day, every day. It was almost like a form of torture. And I just remember Gareth Gates from Pop Idol being one of the songs that was on loop constantly. It was torture. But I can laugh at it, but when I spoke to people there was one man, a lovely man who worked there, who'd been there 27 years. And it's almost quite humbling to think, you know, whilst this has now become something I talk about and something that we can laugh at, it was, and it does make you appreciate how important education is, because these are the kind of jobs that are on offer otherwise for unskilled labour.
Just, do you think the model of, for example, our sixth form body, how many of them do you think would take that opportunity if you turn around and said to them, hi guys, there's an opportunity here, got some work experience paid? What do you think our sixth formers would say?
They wouldn't do it. Well, I think some would. I think there would be some who just saw the money and thought, yes, great. But I just think people will be like, no, I'm not going to do that. And I think these kind of jobs, I did loads of them, and I've got loads of good stories from the kind of jobs I did. After that, I went and worked in a hotel in Jersey for the summer. It was brilliant, but it's character building. It's these kind of jobs that make you who you are as an adult, and you know, and make you appreciate things. And every time I had other jobs, I thought back to my 3 weeks of ethnic cuisine and Gareth Gates on repeat, and I just was really thankful. So it made me appreciate other jobs I had along the way as well.
So you've kind of touched on and said, you know, about your colourful school experience and your range of jobs. But why then? So why did you decide to get into the world of education?
So I went to Manchester to do a degree, and I did a year in industry. So I worked in this really big, and it was massive, recruitment company in my year in industry, working in marketing and resourcing, and hated it from the moment I got there. It didn't help that I had this boss who had a bit of a God complex, and I couldn't really understand why she had this God complex, because I just kept thinking, she works in recruitment, like, she's not saving lives. And I think it made me realise that I just needed to do something that had a bit of purpose. I know all jobs have purpose, but had some sort of social impact. And when I started to think about it and started to think about teaching, I realised, actually, so many women in my family are teachers. It was probably always going to happen. I just had got so fed up with school, left school, and you just need a bit of a break from being a student before realising you want to go back and be a teacher. But when I speak to students who at 18 know they want to be teachers, it amazes me, because it does make me think, you know, there are people out there who just know at a young age it's what they want to do. But for a lot of people, it is going out and experiencing work that makes them realise that they actually love the education setting and being around young people. So that was the main reason.
Yeah, and it's really sort of interesting you say that, you know, we're quite a close school, we always speak to each other and things. And I think it's really sort of people of our age generation, when you speak to them, a lot of them did have careers and jobs before going into teaching. Yes, it's really, really interesting. So
I would almost advise having a different career first. Obviously some people go straight into it, straight from university, but I think it kind of makes the job, it gives it more of a purpose being somewhere first, and especially if it was a career that you didn't particularly like or burned out from.
So forget about the buzzwords, what anybody, you know, if you were in an interview and somebody asked you this question, forget about that. Kind of, to you personally and professionally, if when you're teaching, they may be in your lesson, they may not be, they may just be in and around school. What does an outstanding student look like to you?
I think at A level, it becomes even more noticeable. I think an outstanding student, because it isn't just about the students who go and get A's and A stars. I think it is someone who has a passion for learning and just enjoys learning. So in economics, you can tell students who really enjoy economics. They're not just going through the motions of doing A levels because they feel that that's what they need to do. They have an enjoyment. They really enjoy finding new things out, exploring subjects. They may not want to be economists, or, you know, even from a sixth form point of view, they may be studying English. They may not want to read English at university, but they just have this enjoyment of learning and continuously improving what they're learning. But not always about getting A's and A stars. You're not just an outstanding student if you get A's and A stars. You can be an outstanding student getting B's and getting C's as well.
Taking Miss Rees out of school, what do you like to get up to at weekends, pre and post pandemic?
Well, actually, it would be the same, but I think it became more of a salvation post-pandemic. I love exploring London. I think we're so fortunate to live in one of the best cities in the world. I've lived here since 2009, and I never tire of going around, venturing around London. So it has become a bit more of a salvation post-pandemic because there isn't much else to do other than go for long walks. But within that, also food markets and a lot of exploring street food and food markets. That has been something that we have been able to do post-pandemic. I've been to Borough Market. I don't think it's open at the moment, but I went to Borough Market quite a few times, exploring different cultures through food, and just eating a lot and drinking a lot.
And I can't believe you haven't mentioned your beautiful son.
Oh, yes, sorry. he comes along with me wherever I go with his scooter. And he is also a big fan of a food market for different reasons to me. He tends to like the more sweet treats, the cookies, the ice cream, etc.
I haven't seen you knocking around East London on one of the electric scooters yet.
Oh, no, right. So I went on an electric scooter in Copenhagen, and this may say something about my age because I was petrified. And I love going on a bike. I love cycling, but on an electric scooter, I was like this. Just could not turn around. I couldn't check behind me, and I found it really scary. It was fun, but it's just not for me.
Who inspires you and why?
So when you sent me these questions, I was like, oh, who am I going to say for this? You know, there's loads of people who inspire me. And then I started reading this book over the last few days called Nobody Will Tell You This But Me, which explores maternal dynamics, so relationships with your mother, with your grandmother. And it made me realize, and I suppose also the older I get and being a mum, how influential your mother is on your life. So I think my biggest influence and who inspires me most is my mum. She got married at 19, which now horrifies me that people get married so young. She had 3 children before 26, and then with 3 very small children, took herself back to university and trained to be a nurse. And now I think how even, you know, I've got 1 child, and sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm tired, and getting him ready for school can sometimes be annoying when he's taking ages. And she did it with 3, plus getting a university degree, plus, you know, writing assignments. She studied to be a palliative care nurse, and, you know, so she was writing assignments plus working on wards. While studying, she also had a job working in a care home. So she had so much going on. And I think back to my childhood, and I just don't ever feel like we missed out because of it. And she was always there, and she still always had patience and time to do things. And it just makes, I suppose, being a mum has made me realise how hard and challenging that must have been.
And you spoke about earlier on, you know, I think sort of the importance of having sort of like those people around you and things. And obviously, were your sisters family? I don't think you haven't got any brothers, but were they all
No.
sort of, were you all quite close?
Yes, very close. Yes, still very close. And my sisters both have relatively young children, the oldest being 14, and then Oliver being the youngest at 4, and then 2 more in between. And they're all really close as well. In the summer, one of my sisters has a hot tub, and they spent a lot of time in the hot tub together. I imagine that will be summer 2021 as well, because I don't think we're going to have much of an opportunity to go abroad. Sorry to depress anyone who's watching this.
And again, sort of just moving on to a different question. You said that you've been here at Chobham Academy since 2013. So you're one of the OGs.
I was going to say OG. That's what the students call it. Yeah, the OG.
So what would you say is your favourite thing about Chobham Academy?
Well, I love loads about Chobham Academy. I think, so who was it? Mr. Boyd, Louis Boyd said, "Oh, well, you're a lifer, aren't you?" I quite like this way that people refer to it, like the assumption that someone's going to be in the school for their whole career. I don't know whether I will, but I do love it. One thing I love at the moment, so I was speaking to some year 13s yesterday, is this sort of, I'd always jumped from, I'd had a job for 2 years in West London, and before that, another job in West London for 2 years, and I'd done my NQT year in a school in Manchester. So this sort of realising the longer you stay in the school, the bigger your bond comes with the students, and you have these stories with students that you just, they're 18 now, that you're discussing things from when they were 11, 12 years old, and remembering certain stories. So I think that's it. And I wish someone had kind of told me really early on in my career that there is sort of a value in staying somewhere for quite a long period of time, and that longevity in that period of time, because you can just have so many good memories from it. But I love loads about the school. I could list them for ages. Sorry, someone just brought me some boxes in, so I've just put my hand up.
We'll get you on the school's website on the recruitment page, shall we?
No, don't. But sorry, just on that. So I know someone had put on Facebook some pictures of loads of us from when Neighbourhood first opened. And I think that is something, and I should probably, the relationships of staff in the school is brilliant. And whenever I speak to a member of staff who's left Chobham to go to another school, I think this is something they're always shocked about, is there aren't necessarily these relationships in other schools, especially if you go out of inner London where everyone's driving to work and everyone rushes home on Fridays at 4:00. So I think that is something really unique and special about Chobham.
Yeah, we tend to rush somewhere else, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. Last question, Susie. If you could go back to your 15-year-old self, what would you tell her and why?
That becoming an adult does not mean you're going to have everything together. You don't become an adult and instantly have all the answers to everything. And I suppose your 20s more than ever is that time to start learning the answers to everything. I was definitely a 15-year-old who thought you woke up at sort of 19, 20 and just magically had your life together and had it sussed. And you don't. I suppose you spend your whole life learning, discovering challenges, finding out answers to things. And I think that's something really important. And this was probably my parents' stoicism, that they were so stoic and, always had a game face on, that I didn't necessarily know that they may have had struggles, that they weren't coping with things at any time. And I just think it is something that's important for younger people to know, that you're not going to have it together all the time.
Thank you so much for your time. That's it. We're out of questions.
Can I just say, I've been watching this and the whole time I'm looking at you, but you seem really good at looking at the screen. So I don't know whether I'm going to look like my face is sideways the whole time.
No, you're absolutely fine.
Okay.
Thank you so much. See
everyone.
you soon. And yeah, hopefully things get back to normal. Take care.
Thanks, Josh. Bye.